Travis, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Hey, it's great. It's about time to have you
I
here.
I know. We've been trying to do this for like 3 years now.
That's what you think you're avoiding or something.
Well, no, not at all. Just, I guess I am camera shy. I don't like
Yeah,
being in front of
right.
people. And, yeah.
How did you get into theater?
Well, it's interesting. I've always, my parents would probably tell you that I've always kind of been a performer of some way or another. I like to sing songs in front of the family, and they'd put me up and do stuff. But I guess probably the first real theatrical experience that I had was I was probably in about sixth grade, and there was a new children's musical. I grew up in San Antonio, and there was a new children's musical that was being produced, a musical version of The Ransom of Red Chief, and it was one of the universities, the Trinity University, the theater department had commissioned it. And so I got to play, I got a cast. I don't even remember how I heard about the audition. I think my dad said something about it. And I got cast and I got cast as the bully, the town bully. Because the funny thing about me was I hit my, I hit my growth spurt really early, probably about sixth grade. Yeah. I got to be about as tall as I am now,
Wow.
So football. Oh man, I played football from sixth grade. I was unstoppable. They just gave me the ball and I'd go through everybody because I was 3 times the size. Now, by the time I got to about 10th grade, 10th grade, it was, everybody started catching up with me and it got a lot harder and I don't want to do this anymore. And so I went to high school theater from there. But anyway, I did this show. It was a lot of fun. Just, I guess, you talk about people getting the bug and I got the bug. And then about a year later, there was a professional dinner theater in San Antonio. This is back in the 80s when the dinner theater circuit was still very strong across the nation. And, these dinner theaters would bring in major celebrities, to do shows. And there was a dinner theater in town and they were doing a production of Sound of Music. And one of the guys that I had done the show, one of the kids that I was in the show with there that I got to be friends with, his mom was taking him to an audition for it. And she said, "You want to come along?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And so I got cast there. And that kind of really was what got me into kind of the professional side of theater was working at that theater. And I got to meet some incredible, I got to meet Roddy McDowell, Gary Berghoff, all those kind of celebrity people that they would come in. And so I did a lot of work there. It was a professional equity theater. Earl Holliman owned it. And then went off to college, got my BA in vocal music, thought about pursuing it professionally, but I also, got married, had kids, and so, so
it puts a damper on certain
things.
Does,
so life took a different turn, and and actually kind of stepped back. I didn't do a lot of theater for the first, 10 years or so when we were married because I had little kids and we were raising kids and just being busy. And then when we moved here to the Houston area, Tomball, we lived in Tomball at the time, and Tomball had in connection with Tomball College, they did some community musicals and stuff. My wife, Kim, actually auditioned for one doing Music Man. And, there are those moments when somebody does something that just significant has such the decision to do that one thing has a huge significant impact on your life.
It's amazing.
And Kim, actually, it's really more on her. She went and auditioned. She got cast as Marion in this production of Music Man, and Jeff Baldwin, who is playing in your lead and the producers right now, was playing, I didn't actually do that show. He was playing, Harold Hill. Okay. And so we got to know Jeff and Brandy and Jono and Sherry and all these people that, from the Renaissance Festival. And Jeff kept saying, "I want you and your family to come out and audition for the festival." And then I did Guys and Dolls with them the next year. And then we went out and auditioned for the festival. And got on cast there. I met all these fabulous people. And then at the same time, here in Conroe, they were doing Camelot here. Crighton players were doing Camelot here. So I came and auditioned for Camelot and got cast there and got involved with theater up here. And really, that's kind of where it's all blossomed from there. That one show where we met those people, Now I'm the marketing director for the Texas Renaissance Festival. So the Texas Renaissance Festival became a huge part, met people that were connected out here. And that all, it just has led to me having this wondrul theatrical home in Conroe, of all places.
Well, so you've been with RenFest, what, 20 plus years or more?
Almost. This will be my 16th season with them.
Wow.
Yeah. Started out, like I said, my family and I auditioned. We were all cast as a family.
Right.
I played Sir Thomas More, and they were my family. And we kind of played it like they were the Von Trapps. And so we go around and we had these little songs that we worked up. And then as, as the kids got bigger and the family thing didn't kind of mix, we all played different parts. My wife, I played Sir Thomas More. My longest stint was I was the Master of Arms for the Joust show there. Did a couple of times in the dinner theater, the Feast Hall dinner theater show that they did. Then in 2007 became their school days coordinator.
Yes.
And so they have this 2-day event where they open the park just for school groups. And I took that on and added a music and theater competition to school days to kind of expand it and help grow it. So this will be my 16th season with the festival since 2000.
So how has it changed over time?
In a lot of ways, really. I mean, when we first started, I say we were more of what you would truly consider to be a Renaissance festival.
Right.
A big one, average attendance about 200,000 or so, I guess. But it was a Renaissance festival. We were firmly rooted in one period of history.
Right.
With King Henry. It was Tudor England, King Henry, and whatever. We'd pick a different year, and so we'd have different queens that were different wives. But then, as it kind of grew, and then when we added this concept of having themed weekends for every weekend, had a different theme. We went from being a kind of more of a traditional Renaissance festival to being more of a fantasy festival, and embracing a whole lot of different periods in the span of 8 weekends. So we opened with Oktoberfest, and we have a German court, but our Germans are dressed in lederhosen and dirndls, so it's more like a 19th century Germany. Right. Because that certainly wasn't what they wore in the Renaissance period of Germany. And then our 1001 Dreams, it's all fairies and fantasy creatures and things like that. Our pirate weekend, our pirates are Pirates of the Caribbean type pirates. So, so again, you're 18th century pirates. Roman Bacchanal, we're back it's a toga party. Barbarians, there weren't any barbarians in Tudor England. And then Highland Fling, our Scots are more like your Outlanders, 17th, 18th century Scots. And then, Celtic Christmas is really much more of a Victorian style English Christmas than it would have been in Renaissance time. So it became much more of a fantasy fair. And our character groups, while they tend to be historically based, it's much more Monty Python than it is. I say it's much more Monty Python than it is Colonial Williamsburg for sure. We're not trying to be a reenactment. Except for School Days. School Days is the one time when we really kind of retool things and get much more historically grounded and make it much more of an educational experience than it is just kind of the fun fantasy period. And part of that is just because, the fantasy elements, are what most people recognize. Unless you're a true history geek like I am, you're not going to know one of how many wives Henry actually had. Most people think he was called Henry VIII because he had 8 wives and he had all of them beheaded. So they know more from the song Henry VIII I am, Henry VIII I am. So anyway, so it has changed. It's also become another way that we've changed is just with the growth of the festival and its attendance and its size. We're really much more of a theme park, than we are kind of a fair, And so I love working there. It's challenging, but it's also rewarding. It's so much fun. It's so magical, and my biggest joy now since I'm not a performer out there anymore, my biggest joy is watching the magic come alive to other people and really see that, for whether it's little children when they encounter a fairy or a knight. or it's adults that kind of have an opportunity to come out and play again, you know. And
well, I mean, that's a big thing. I mean, if you step back from Renfest and just look at the whole fantasy movement, cosplay,
exactly,
right?
yes.
Cosplay.
Yeah.
What drove that?
You know, I don't know, but I like to say that we were cosplay when cosplay wasn't cool. Because even before, people were getting dressed up and coming out to play with us, long before it became. But I think a lot of it has to do with a generation that grew up where this kind of fantasy thing was acceptable, you know. And I think there are a lot of different elements of it because, you know, with my parents in the 40s and 50s, it was Westerns.
Right.
Westerns were the thing.
Right.
And so when little kids dressed up, boys particularly, they were wearing, you know, six guns and cowboy hats or coonskin caps and things like that. And then, you know, in the 60s with Star Trek and all of those kinds of things and the sci-fi elements started becoming really big and more accepted.
Right.
You know, capturing the imagination. And then with the advent of video games and what video games did to really create these incredible worlds that you can immerse yourself in. Right. I think that really drove that whole generation of people that really wanted to do that. You know, that immersive experience.
Yes.
Because that's really what the festival is. The festival is a big immersive theater experience, is what it is. You know, and in terms of theater overall, I think that's the next big thing. I think that immersive theater is where the genre, is where the art form is going. That while there's always a place for these great old theaters with the fourth wall and the proscenium, I think that what most people want is they now want that experience of being brought in, because that's something that they can't get from a movie, or from a television show. That is something that theater can offer them, that they can't get in these other yet. Yeah. Now there probably will be a time when it'll all be. Of course. We'll all just be walking around wearing these virtual reality headsets, and and wearing these weird sensor suits so that we can feel like we're actually in it. But we're not there yet. So theater offers that opportunity for them. You know, and a theatrical experience like what the festival is. Really does create that total immersion into being someplace else for a while.
Well, you're one of the few people who actually seem like you've been able to morph your professional career and continue to do what you love.
Yeah.
So what would you tell people that can do that? Because not everyone can do that.
Well, you know, I think you can find ways to do it. You know, yeah, you know, I'm blessed. I really am blessed that I work in entertainment. You know, but you know, whether for somebody like, you know, that's one of the joys of community theater. One of the reasons why I love working in community theater is that anybody can kind of step out and don a costume and become, you know, a townsperson in New York City or in Nazi Germany or wherever they want to be, you know, and be somebody else for a while. You know, but it's not just, it doesn't have to be, you know, theater here. You know, it never ceases to amaze me, like either at the festival or at a place like Comic Palooza, one of the Comic Cons or something, where I'm standing there and I'm walking around and I'm seeing these elaborate costumes and creative costumes and these brilliant ideas, the way they mash up genres and stuff. And they've worked so hard on these things and spent often a lot of money. And just to be able to kind of, in their own way, become somebody else for a little while and step into a different world, you know. And you know, when I out at the festival, I see these people that come out to enjoy the festival, that have spent countless hours and countless dollars on their costumes, you know, and I know I do it, and I spend that kind of money, but I work there, you know. I have to have something that looks good and looks good up close. These people, it's just the way they've chosen to express themselves, but they are really, really into it.
Oh yeah,
you know.
I found there was a story. There's a lady. She makes six figures just going around from convention or not even conventions. That's what they said, like, we need you in Tokyo. We need you as a fairy. Okay. On Tuesday, we need you in New York, and we need you as whatever. Spider-Woman, whatever. Okay. And she makes a living doing that. She's going from place to place, making her own costumes. cheaply but nicely as best as possible. It does incredible.
Yeah,
it has incredible time.
And and you know what was kind of interesting to me, again, you know, talking about how this whole culture that we're in of these kind of immersive environments is I'm starting to see it in the business world too.
Really?
You know, you talk about businesses
that
probably hire her to come out and help promote their material, their stuff.
Big bucks.
To have some kind of costumed presence there. Also, you know, well, just down the road at the Woodlands Mall, there's this new candy shop down there, and I can't think of what it's called, but it looks like it looks like an old turn of the 20th century candy shop, you know, Willy Wonka kind of thing. And when you walk in, everybody that works there is dressed as if they were working in a 1900s candy shop.
Wow.
And I walked in there and I went, they're doing what we do out at the festival. It's that whole immersive experience. And I think you're going to see more of that. I was in San Antonio not too long ago. We were downtown at the Alamo. And, you know, right across from the Alamo, there's this whole strip of like Ripley's Believe It or Not and all these different museums and theaters and things. And every one of them had at least one costumed person standing out front to draw people in, which was different from what I remember 10 years ago.
No, it has changed over time. You know? But it's funny. Being in costume, it makes a statement.
It does.
And I guess really because not that many people do it. Even if you go to Comic Palooza. The Trek convention, anything like that.
Yeah.
I think you'd be lucky if 5% actually dress up.
Yeah.
Which is kind of amazing. But that's okay. I mean, hey, you pay your money if you're there just for the immersive experience, which is I think that's a great adjective. We want that experience. We're paying for the experience. And whether we actually are participating in it or not,
And that's, you know, that's true for theater as well. You know, the majority of the people that come to here don't come to perform. They come to be entertained, and they come to be taken away and in some way immersed in what is going on the stage. And I don't think that will ever change. You know, people always talk about the death of theater, and I don't. You know, theater is an art form that's been around for millennia. And I don't think that it will morph and it will change and it will rediscover and reinvent itself. But I don't think that it will ever go away just because of the fact that it does offer not only that immersive sense and that transformative sense, but it's communal too. That's the other part that's a big part of it. It's a communal form. You know, if you're sitting in a movie, you're not necessarily connecting with the people around you. You're certainly not connecting with the people on the screen in a real way, because it's not real. It's a reflection. But in theater, you're surrounded by people, and you've got people in front of you, and they're real people, and sometimes the audience forgets that they're real people, and but they are real people, and it's something about sharing that experience with both the people that are on the stage and the people that are in the audience with you that makes it truly magical.
Well, you probably see quite a few folks that come through, because I know you have auditions for Renfest. So that, do you see a difference in, I guess, what it is that people are learning in theater?
Yes, yeah. You know, my wife is a theater educator and has been a theater educator for 20 years now, almost. You know, I think I think there are good things and there are bad things. There are good trends and bad trends. The good trends that I see is I think we continue to move towards more realistic portrayals, more honest portrayals. You know, less about acting and more about being.
Yes.
I think that's good. You know, you could see it in television. You know, you compare the majority of television 30 years ago to what is on TV now, and it's more realistic. But I think on a whole, it's more real too. So I think that's a very positive thing, and I think people understand that both the people that are acting, both the actors understand that, and the people that are consuming that acting, you know, the audiences understand that more, and they're a little more sophisticated in that way. And it filters down, you know, to where, you know, anymore with the amount of talent that you can amass on a community theater stage can oftentimes be equal to what you would see in a professional production someplace. Now, the production values may not be as high because the budgets are not as big, and the stage facilities usually aren't as modern, and so from a scenic standpoint and things like that. But in terms of the actual talent that's being put out there on the stage, I think sometimes it's quite equitable. I've seen professional productions that I thought this feels more like a community theater show than what I've seen in community theater. So I think that's on the positive end. The one trend that I tend to see that is a little more concerning to me is this trend towards it being about celebrity.
Yes.
And about because we have this. In so many, now in politics even, it tends to be more about the personality than the person.
Yes.
And more about, wanting to be a star, and wanting that sense of the value of feeling that you're valued because people know who you are.
Right.
And you have how many Twitter followers you've got.
Right.
How many people you've got on your Facebook feed. And I think that's sad. One of the best, when I was in high school, my high school theater teacher was probably the biggest influence. And there are a lot of, there are people that I know of that have actually gone on professionally that he mentored. And he gave me a great piece of advice, and I've never, ever forgotten it. His name was Marion Sweatman. And he's a legend in Texas in terms of high school theater. But what he told me was, he said, if you're doing it for the applause, you're doing it for all the wrong reasons. He said, because the applause will never be enough. Mm-hmm. And I've always remembered that. There's got to be something deeper. There's got to be, you've got to be able to do it for some reason other than you want people to like you.
Right.
Because they're not always going to like you anyway.
Right.
And in a field like acting where only 5% of professional actors, of all the professional actors that are out there, only 5% of them are probably working at any one time. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of rejection. Mm-hmm. If you need that acclamation and that affirmation, if that's what's driving you, you're going to probably be miserable. And for me, of course, I like the applause as much as anybody.
Well, who doesn't?
Who doesn't?
Yeah. Right,
but it's part of why I like directing is because I like kind of being behind the scenes, and I find it to be a more gratifying in a lot of ways. It people don't always know who you are, but it's much more gratifying to see the creation come to life.
Mm-hmm. So when did you get into directing?
I didn't start directing till I directed my first show on this stage, 2008. A Few Good Men.
That was your first?
That was my first show.
Oh, come on. No, there has been others. No,
that was it. That was the first time I ever got to direct. I always wanted to, but had never been given the opportunity. And,
wow.
And they decided, I think the board at that time decided that they wanted to do it, but since it was kind of a risky show, right. For our audiences, they said, "Well, Travis, you want to direct it?" I said, "Sure, it's my opportunity." So give me the show that I figured, what do I got to lose,
right.
But give me the show that's got the most language in it and deals with some pretty intense subject matter. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was my first one.
Wow,
first one. And up until doing Rumors, which I'm doing right now, was the last straight play, non-musical that I had directed. Because I went on to doing musicals, and that kind of became my niche for a long time. Right. And I love doing musicals, but I'm really excited about getting back to this because with a comedy or a drama as opposed to a musical, you really get to spend more time dealing into the text and the story and the characters, because with a musical it's just, oh man, there's just so much. It's
most about the music, the choreography, and everything else. It's almost secondary.
Well, yeah, it really is. It really is. There's a dramatic quality to a good musical. Within a musical, the music itself is going to develop to help, develop that subtext and all of those kind of nuanced emotional things. And so you don't have to work quite so hard on the character development, because that all comes out in the music and in a well-written story. And usually you don't have the time either in a musical like the way we do musicals. Right. You're lucky if you've got everybody knows their blocking and their choreography and their parts by the time you open.
Right.
But the nice thing about doing the other type is that you really do have the opportunity to dig deeper, and spend more time, like I say, spend more time around the table, sitting around the table with the actors and just talking about, okay, well, what's really going on here, and what do you think the character's trying to do and accomplish, and so I'm really excited about being able to get back to that again. It's been a long time.
So if you talk about your acting style, do you have a particular technique or a person that you like to emulate, or you take a mishmash of different philosophies?
I've never actually studied any particular, I've never gone to Meisner classes, and I've never gone to Adler classes. I've read a lot of the different ones. I come back to what I learned early on in high school, which was kind of a mashup of that. But what I did learn, what it was about being real. Not necessarily method kind of thing to where you have to totally be that person and you're not, but it's about finding that emotional truth. Characters kind of like something that you pin up, and you've got these hooks of emotion and motivation and response that you try to find the hook and to give that character the shape that you want. Take a little bit. I think there's truth in all of them. I think that if you go too far in any one direction, then it's not going to serve you, and it's not going to serve the show very well. But I think there is some truth. There are things to be drawn from all of them. So it's it is kind of a mashup. But mostly I just try to be in there and understand the character, get where they're coming from, and then when we're performing it or rehearsing it, to just try to be it, And sometimes I think you have to do it in different ways for different characters and stuff.
Well, I mean, it seems like you do it professionally, and then you do theater on the side. Right. What do you do to decompress?
Cook.
Really?
I like to cook.
You're into cooking.
Yeah, I'm into cooking, and I'm more into eating, obviously, than I am
hey, aren't we all? Yeah. Aren't we all?
But I do like to cook. I watch a lot of television.
A lot of Netflix, or what do you?
Netflix, yeah. Right now, I'm binging. I've just gone through a long binge of Breaking Bad, Mad Men. I'm in the middle of Better Call Saul right now, first season, because I missed it when it first came out. And that's the thing when you're doing all this stuff, it's and it's kind of interesting that you ask that, because for a long time I didn't decompress. I went almost from show to show to show.
Oh, come on. There has to be some way you decompress.
But I didn't, and when I wasn't in a show, I was planning for the next show,
right.
And after I directed Christmas Carol, which was Christmas Before Last, yes, that's 2014.
Still a little over a year and a half. Not even a year and a half.
2014.
Yep.
And I decided I was going to step back and take some time off from doing any kind of theater. So I didn't audition for anything. I didn't put myself out to ask if I could direct anything. And the festival, I'd moved into a new position at the festival, and that took up a lot of time. That really did kind of, I'm kind of glad that I did. I say I took a step back. I did do one murder mystery dinner theater downtown at Prohibition Club, but all it was rehearsals and shows were on Sunday evenings for like 3 hours. Right. And I said, okay, this is okay. I can handle it.
Pretty easy.
Yeah. So I took some time off, and we kind of traveled a little bit, and I'd like to travel more. And, we bought a house, and so working in the yard and all those kinds of things. So, I took some time off, but, and it was good. I'm glad looking back, I'm glad I did it, because kind of had gotten, like anything else, this place can consume you, and it can be all you think about and all you do, and then you don't have balance. Yes. And what I had found was I was really kind of approaching a point where I wasn't enjoying it so much. I was feeling a little burned out, and being kind of stressed and on edge around everybody, right? Which burning some bridges because of it, and I thought, no, I'm gonna take some time off, So usually when I'm not doing a show, I just kind of chill. Yeah. Chill and Netflix. Netflix and chill. That's the phrase. I Netflix and chill. But read a lot.
What do you like to read?
A lot of history. I'm a big history buff.
Big history? Yeah. Any particular period, type?
No, I kind of go a lot of English history. Reading I've got so many things going. That's part of the problem, too, is I never finish books because I juggle about 6 of them at the same time. So
you could read 6 books at one time?
Well, yeah, but not very well. My wife will tell you it's not very well. So I'm reading a book called Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, which is about an 18th century magician in England who's an actual magician. And so it's really kind of a fascinating story about how he's supposed to be the one true magician in England and can actually practice magic. And he teams up with this representative from the fairy world, and they are fighting Napoleon. And so that's kind of interesting. I'm still trying to finish a massive biography of Winston Churchill that I've been reading since I was probably 20. It's huge. It's a 3-volume set, and it goes on and on and on, but I love it. And I love the character. And Churchill, right. Churchill would be somebody that I would love if there was ever a play right. that was centered around him. And I don't know of any, but there should be. I would love to play Churchill. He just was a fascinating man. So I've got that going, and rereading Sherlock Holmes again, and Lord of the Rings, and so I tend to come back to those novels as well. But I'm kind of a political junkie too. So right now it's kind of fascinating.
My goodness, there's so much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't want to be in politics, but it's a fun game to watch, and there's so much. So I tend to read a lot of news, and I consume a lot of news. But no, I wouldn't want to be involved in it.
Oh my goodness. What is it about a book that leads you to say, I'm going to finish this, or because I get some books, I'll get 2/3 of the way.
I'm away with a lot of those.
And if it doesn't hold my interest, I'm out of there.
And I think it comes back to story. Yeah. It's the same thing with a book or a play. It's story, and you begin to appreciate how rare a gift good storytelling is.
Yes.
But good storytellers know it's a craft, and they know how to craft it, and they know how to keep your interest in develop really rich, enthralling characters who are relatable and real. And but they are. I find they're few and far between the ones that can really hold my interest.
Right.
And I'm not a fast enough reader. My wife reads all the time too, but she's a pretty quick reader, and so she can, even if it's a book that she doesn't like very much, she can get through it.
Right.
I'm too slow. I fall asleep. So.
Do you write?
I have tried my hand at writing some. I'm not very disciplined. I'm not disciplined enough.
This stuff's not you.
Well. No,
whatever.
No.
Yeah.
I would like to write, and I keep thinking I'm going to sit down. I have ideas that go through my head all the time. Right. I joke about I've had this concept in my head of a Star Trek musical for 4 or 5 years now. Which I think would have been hilarious because it would involve both the original series characters and the new Next Generation characters.
Right.
I had this idea that there would be this song called "The Ballad of the Red Shirts," where all of the security people that had been killed, they'd be singing about how they marched to death all the time, and then the second act would open with a version of like the Small House of Uncle Thomas ballet from King and I. Only it's Worf's dream, and in Worf's dream, he actually gets to command the Enterprise. And he gets to do it the way he would do it. Right. And so there was that. I've got that in my head. I've got a couple of children's storybooks that I've thought about, but
oh my goodness,
I haven't actually managed to make myself sit down and do the writing yet.
Well, if you were going to do that, this would be the year to do it because this is
the
the 50th
anniversary.
year.
I know.
However you want to count it, and so this would be.
I
the
should
year
have been working on it about 10 years ago, so it'll be ready now. That'll be on my tombstone. Next, I'm gonna, here's what I'm gonna do next.
I talked to Tim Eggert. He's been a Doctor Who fan longer than some people have been alive.
I know. Tim,
scary.
Tim and I appreciate Tim for those very reasons. I've not been a big Doctor Who fan, but we can talk Star Trek a lot.
Yeah.
And he's the only other person, so second person I've ever met that knows the lyrics to the original series Star Trek theme song.
Oh my goodness!
Most
lyrics
people don't even know there are.
No, there are lyrics, but yes,
there are lyrics. Yes, and he knows them. We've sung them
goodness.
together. Yeah, and one other person that I know, the guy I did a show with, a production of South Pacific with way back when, who was a big Trek fan.
So do you get to travel a lot with your position?
No, somewhat. I haven't recently. This year it looks like I'll probably be doing some. We're going next week. I'm going to go out to Phoenix to visit the Arizona Renaissance Festival. But I did. I got an opportunity through the festival. Guess it was 2008 probably. Kim and I got to go to Galapagos Islands and do a cruise in Galapagos, which was, that was one that I'll never forget. That was probably the most amazing travel experience I've had so far. Been to New York a lot.
Yes.
Go to New York City a lot, but haven't been in a few years. So we're hoping we're going to start. We'll do some more travel. My oldest daughter's getting married this year, so it's all about the wedding.
Yay, Hillary!
Yay, exactly. Yes. Yay, Hillary. Yep. It's 2 months away, so then we'll be free again.
You'll be free again
till Libby decides to get married. But family has been a lot of what we've done, and most of our vacations. I joke that with my kids, most of our family vacations were through the 16th century because we would go out to the Renaissance Festival every weekend and stay in our trailer and camp out there and perform. And yes, more travel is on the horizon, I think.
So where do you want to go that you haven't been yet?
Oh, so many places. I want to go to Australia because
of course.
My youngest daughter's there.
Did Kim go though?
Yes, Kim's been. I
been.
sent Kim to check things out.
To
make sure everything was okay with her because she was planning on staying, and so I can't send. But I was doing Shrek at the time, so I couldn't go.
Yeah.
So Australia and New Zealand. I want to go back to Europe. Haven't been there in a long time. I have never been to the UK, interestingly enough.
Really? I've done all
this study, and I have never been there. I feel like I could find my way around there very easily, but I've never been there. So UK is definitely on the list. Right. I'd love to go to China and Japan too.
Really?
I think China would be fascinating. Well, in Japan too. The cultures fascinate me. When I was a kid was when the miniseries of James Michener's Shogun came out, and I remember watching that and all of that about the Japanese culture and the lifestyle and the traditions, and I just loved it. So I'd love to go to Japan. I'd love to go to China. I really would like to go. I can't think of any Africa. Cultures fascinate me, and so I'd like to experience them, as many of them as I can, in the time I've got left.
Right.
And there's so many different kinds of people, so many different ways of doing things, so many different ways of thinking, and I'd like to understand them more.
So what is about the different cultures? I mean, we're more Western in that sense.
Right.
We kind of have a lot of the European history and values, or at least we think we do anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
But the Asian, the cultures is very almost alien.
It is. It really is. Yes? The fact that they are so much more communal, so much more so much less individualistic than we are, which is fascinating to me. Like you take a cultural in Japan. Like it was fascinating. I was reading an article the other day about child rearing in different cultures and things that like in Japan, it's not uncommon for a child as young as 7 and even younger maybe to travel on the subway by themselves.
Yeah, we wouldn't even think of that.
We would never think of that.
No.
And any parent that allowed their child to do that would have the child taken away from them.
Yeah, they would be considered irresponsible.
Japan, exactly. Yeah. It's normal, and part of that I think is because it's a society that is very well ordered. There's not as much individualism there, and as much individual expression. Apparently in Denmark, parents will take their baby in the stroller and they'll leave the stroller outside the store and go inside and do their shopping.
Oh my goodness.
And it's
nothing.
nothing.
Think nothing of it.
There was in one African culture that they pointed out where the mothers won't look at the child.
Don't look.
Won't look at them. Won't make direct eye contact with their children, because apparently in that culture, making direct eye contact is something that you do only to a superior. It's the way that you're showing respect and deference to that person. Right. So because you don't want the mother wants to make sure that they're instigating that sense of social order with the child, that the child is younger and therefore the mother's the one that should have the respect. They don't look at the child directly in the face, in the eyes. They won't make direct eye contact with them. Yeah, it's wild. It's completely different,
Right.
But I guess it works, But
all these subtleties, you go from culture to culture. You need to know you could offend someone very simply, without even realizing, right?
And it's funny because one of the things that I've been working with the festival is working on developing a stronger tourism outreach.
Yes.
And particularly international tourism, because Houston is such a big international community. And in doing that, I've been working with the Houston Convention and Visitors Bureau and talking with them about international tourism and going to some of their workshops and learning a lot about how the different things that you do when you're dealing with an international guest. Like for instance, it is considered, very rude if a person from, like, say, Japan, if they give you your business card, if you just take it and, like, you're talking to them, they hand you your business card and you just put it in your pocket, which for us, you have to take the time and read it and then put it down face down. And for us, for me in a business context, if I'm talking to somebody, I'll take their business card, but I'm going to keep the conversation going with them, because I think that that's the important thing, is to show that I want to.
You're engaged with them, not this piece of paper. Piece of
paper, and I just take it and say, I'll look at it later.
But that's not what.
But it's an affront, and and so it's amazing that different things mean different. In different cultures, the same thing. Sitting, if you're sitting with someone from a Middle Eastern culture, usually if you put your foot up like this and you show them the bottom of your foot, that's going to be offensive.
Wow,
it's going to be offensive. So it's best to sit, with your feet down and not cross your legs, because otherwise they may take offense at it.
There's so many things. There's gift giving that way.
Right. Yes.
I mean, we talk about even during the Vietnam War. Soldiers come up on the Vietnamese and they start laughing. But that's because they were nervous. But they thought they were laughing at the soldiers. Laughing at them, and they took it completely wrong.
Wrong. Yeah.
There's just so many ways.
So much, and I think so many of our on an international level, I think so many of our conflicts might be lessened by an appreciation and a deeper understanding of the culture, of the cultural context of what's going on. And the deeper cultural context beyond just the politics of it, as opposed to understanding the religious norms and taboos and things like that. It's it's life can be very complicated.
It's interesting. I was looking at there's a job that we're talking about. You need to know Mandarin, right? So Michael knows Mandarin. I don't know Mandarin, but even that, just same thing, different tone, has a completely different meaning.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, we have our own tone within English, of course, but not like
no, not the nuances that they have. Absolutely, it's almost like music, learning how to put the right amount of emphasis, the right amount of pressure to get the meaning across.
Do you have a favorite kind of style of music?
I love jazz, particularly what they would call cool jazz.
Yes,
Herbie Hancock and Vince Guaraldi and those guys. I like jazz. I like classical. I like some pop. Tend to like older pop, the pop that I grew up with. Standards, really being the standards. Show tunes, obviously, and I can appreciate a lot of different musical forms, but I don't. Outside of those, I don't find many that I really like.
Right.
And typically when I'm listening to something, it's on the pop side, it's probably going to be Billy Joel.
Right.
Billy Joel's my guy, you know. But usually when I'm listening to the radio, I'm listening to NPR. So it's
really,
yeah,
you're a big NPR fan.
Big NPR fan. Yes, My kids when they were little, they hated to get in the car with me because they didn't listen to music.
NPR.
They listened to what they called daddy radio.
Daddy
Although my daughter told me, Hillary told me the other day that she started listening to NPR. So I said, "See, I won. I got you. It took me 27 years, but I got you."
Kind of got out and listen to NPR, but to get back into it again.
Yeah,
Sometimes you just get tired of
the
same kind of stuff. I mean, you listen to certain music for a while.
Right. Exactly.
And you get tired of that. Okay, and start flipping channels. Okay, we found NPR.
Yeah. And it's hard for me to listen to radio because, now that we live in this age of Spotify and Pandora and things like that, and I don't have to listen to commercials all the time, and I can pick what I'm listening to as opposed to have somebody else do it. So I tend to not listen to the radio very much, just for that reason. I can appreciate a lot of forms of music, you know, and I hip hop and rap, and there are certain songs that contemporary songs that I love Bruno Mars.
Right.
So I'll find nuggets in every one of them. Country western. I don't listen to a lot of country western, but there's certain artists and certain songs that I really appreciate. I tend to find that what I enjoy most in any kind of musical form is seeing it performed as opposed to just listening to it.
Really,
being in a concert situation, it's which same way with sports. I don't watch a lot of sports because watching it on television, I find it to be kind of boring. But I love going to games. I love going to see the Astros play and the Rockets.
Oh yeah.
I don't get to go very often, but when I'm there, it's just I just kind of like the live experience, I guess, really more than anything else.
And originally you did football when you were younger,
yes.
As everyone kind of cut up and
exactly.
size.
Yeah.
What kind of sports do you do now?
I really don't play anything. I do some yoga. I mean, for
yoga?
exercise, yeah.
Hot
I'm
yoga?
trying to get back in it. No, I haven't done hot yoga yet. I don't get hot yoga.
I don't get it either.
My wife took a hot yoga class for a while, and it's funny because I got her the gift certificate for Christmas one year for a hot yoga class, and I'm a man, so when I hear hot yoga, I had a completely different image of what that meant as opposed to the idea that you're standing in a room that's 120 degrees and humid.
In Texas,
yeah. I'm going, this is what, why would I do this? I could stand outside and get the same thing. It was, but I do enjoy yoga. I don't do it as often, obviously, as I should. I'm working towards attempting to take up golf. My dad, who just recently retired, has started playing golf. And so I thought, this would be a cool thing for us to have something to do together when he comes and visits and stuff. So I think in this spring I may make the jump. I don't know if I can afford it or not, but it's an expensive
golf.
hobby.
Yes, it is.
And I look at it and I always think about what Mark Twain said about golf, which was that golf was a good walk spoiled.
So you haven't made it to the UK yet?
No.
But you know all those.
But I'm an Anglophile. I'm one of the biggest Anglophiles in the world.
So if you're going to pick one place to go, where are you going to go?
I'm going to go to the UK. I'm going to go in the UK.
What are you going to do in the UK?
No, London. Definitely London.
Course,
London.
Of course.
I want to walk on Baker Street. I want to go to this. I want to go to the Globe.
Right.
Want to go to Stratford.
Yes.
And to Oxford. Love to see Stonehenge. But I also would like, I want to do all three islands. I want to go to Scotland.
Oh my goodness.
I want to go to the Highlands and Edinburgh, and I'd love to go to Edinburgh when they're doing the Fringe Festival because there's amazing stuff going on there. I want to go to Ireland. That's where most of my roots are mostly Scotch-Irish.
Really?
So, in fact, my mother says I'm still trying to get this verified somewhere besides my mother, but my mother says that her family that she's a descendant of the family that founded Galway, which was actually British when the English were ruling Ireland. But it was a British family that founded it. Her maiden name was Athey, and so there's some connection there. But but London, start with London and then work my way out. as far as the trains will take me.
Abbey, I know you guys do that too.
I love Downton Abbey.
There's a tour you can take.
Yes.
You can take these tours. We took the tour of the farm.
Did you?
Yeah, so when we see it on TV, this is the last season for us in America, right? We go like, yeah, we know what that is.
Yeah, see, I'd love to do that. I want to see the great houses.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the great houses, yes.
Yeah, I want to see Highclere, where Downton, which is Downton, and I want to see Blenheim Palace, which is the Churchill's family. Since I'm reading about Churchill, and Churchill's family was, who's a descendant of the Dukes of Marlborough, and that was their big family estate. And so, it's funny because I am the biggest Anglophile, and if I could choose any life to be, I'd be the Earl of Grantham. But I have yet to be there. I've been to France. I've been to the Netherlands. I've been to Germany. I've been to Switzerland and Austria. But I have not yet to get to England.
Wow!
So that's probably next. That's probably where we'll go now. We'll go to we'll go to Australia, but then it's definitely going to be the UK next.
So when did you do Amsterdam?
I was high school. I did a high school tour. Yeah, I did a choir tour.
Yeah.
The course I was with, we went and toured, did a few weeks in Europe. We landed in Amsterdam, did the Netherlands, and I was back in college, my college days, Paris, France, went to, and then Switzerland and went to Salzburg. Didn't make it to Vienna. And I'd love to go that. I'd love to go to Eastern Europe too. I'd love to see Hungary, Czechoslovakia, and all of those places. Romania, Transylvania.
Oh, okay. Hungary is Hungary. Yeah. Actually, you said you're into jazz, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hungary is into American jazz.
Yes, hugely,
big time.
Usually, yes.
They award American jazz artists.
Yes,
and they come over there. They have the great times, and they're so friendly. This is the odd thing. I get hungry for being a country that's been conquered by I don't know how many people.
Exactly, yeah.
They are so friendly
to everybody.
But then you go to other Eastern European kind of country. I call it that. The Czech Republic.
Communist bloc countries.
It's not as friendly. I'm not saying they're not friendly, but not like Hungarians. They're just they are incredible, and the stories they're just incredible. Yeah, gotta make it there. Oh, maybe you should go for the jazz festival.
Yeah,
go for the jazz festival. Got to ask you the question we've been asking everyone else,
which is,
if heaven exists, what do you want God to say when you get to the pearly gates?
I've got this show.
That show would be
Ragtime.
Oh my goodness!
Ragtime is my bucket list show. And I guess I don't know. I'll have to do it myself. Ragtime is I think the great American musical. I really do. And what amazes me about Ragtime, the story's so rich, and I'm dying to direct it. I'm just dying to direct it. And yes, this would be a perfect place to do it, actually. But I've staged in my head on the stage many times. But no, hint. What amazes me about Ragtime is when you think about the themes that Ragtime explores, it is just as timely now as it was when it was written, as it was when in the time that it takes place. When you think about that, it deals with, and I think it's because it's all about, it's the continued American experience of the fact that we deal with the issues of class and rich
race,
and poor and race and immigration and what it means to be an American.
Yes.
And it explores all of those with this beautiful music and this incredible story. And, that's the show that I want to do. That's the show I want to do.
And you've probably seen both the movie and the musical.
Yes.
I like the musical better than the movie.
I do too.
As good as the movie is.
I do too.
I like the musical
better. I do
too,
because for one thing, and I've read the book. I've read the book. I've seen the movie. I saw the musical on Broadway. And I agree, because what the musical is again able to do is, because of the music, it is able to tap into the underlying emotional themes.
Yes.
And it does it in such a beautiful way. It's got one of the most wonderful scores. One of the most perfect scores of any show, and certainly in the modern American musical repertoire.
Yeah.
It is absolutely my favorite.
But is Conroe ready for it?
I think so. Because in the end, if you look at it, it takes you on to some pretty kind of dark places. I mean, certainly if they can handle this thing.
Even this is, we've gotten comments
sure
on that
you
too.
have. I'm sure you have.
And that it's kind of, kind of softened the edges.
Exactly, right.
But even still.
But I think because of where it ends up, where the story ends, which is, no, this country is not perfect, but the promise of it remains. And I think, that's the beauty, and I think of something that we probably need to be reminded more of now, and I wish there were more people that could speak the message that says, one of the beauties of America is I think we're always trying to reach our ideals.
Yes.
And we have great ideals. Mm-hmm. The ideals of this country, the promise of this country are great, but we have to kind of rediscover how those ideals can be reached within each generation. Mm-hmm. But it ends on such a positive note after all of that. I think what happens is, as an audience, when they see it, is they will take from it. It will reaffirm what they believe is great about America.
Yeah,
whatever that is.
Right.
It will reaffirm that in the end.
Right.
Now, you do have to go through some pretty heady stuff and heavy stuff to get there.
But even still, like I said, the musical has ways to evoke, I don't know, soften the edge, whatever.
Exactly, yeah.
That the show, the movie, takes on in just a different.
No, exactly.
Form, right? They even change some of the storyline a little bit, and I'm not objecting to that necessarily.
Yeah.
Just it's like, okay, that's all right. I can.
No, it's kind of funny because the movie does kind of end on a down note.
Yeah.
Whereas the musical ends on such a positive note that our that the idea that the best days are still ahead, and that the promise is still there. That's why I love that show. I absolutely love it. That's my bucket list show. It really is. It's a funny thing about directing is I've loved every show, every show that I've done, even the ones that kind of got. They weren't the ones that I would have chosen to do. Right. I discovered in them something that I love.
We're working on it.
All right.
Travis, thank you so
much
for being here.
Awesome.